beat me. He got really graphic about how he would kill me, and then he would choke me and beat me to the point where I would think that he was about to kill me.
Down here against their will. 2 of them had small children. Those children were being held by a trafficker in Memphis while the females were in our town.
4 o'clock one morning, I got a phone call from a police department that's close by about a young lady that they'd encountered in a hotel there.
These girls are sold on the internet, and then their traffickers set up at truck stops and convenience stores and hotels.
Trying to create me like a Build-A-Bear. Like, he would pick the girl and he would tell you how he wanted your hair to look, tell you what kind of clothes he wanted you to wear. I mean, and he gave us all new names.
We know that the average age of entry into human trafficking is 12 to 14 years, and we believe that there are over 2 million runaways in the United States, and within 48 hours of their running away, 1 in 3 of those runaway teenagers will be lured into prostitution and forced to sell themselves. We've also been told recently that 60% of the trafficked minors came out of the foster care system.
Trafficking is not what you see in some of the movies. 80% of the trafficking that you see coming through on our interstates is homegrown. We've only had 1 undocumented alien that was being trafficked through Tuscaloosa, but it does happen. But 80% of the victims are U.S. citizens.
When I was 17, I didn't really understand what was happening to me. I wasn't capable of processing the events that were taking place. I just knew that it was not right. When I was in the college, a girl who we would call a plant today, she was working for a guy who, I guess, groomed her, and then she saw me and invited me to go with her to this hotel to meet this man. And she called him his friend and everything, and then he began to groom me to think that he was my boyfriend. So I'm 17 and I'm meeting this grown man whom looks amazing, dresses great, has this nice car. Doesn't seem like the typical riffraff that you were taught that, you know, to stay away from. So I'm thinking that I'm his girlfriend, and then that turned into him being a ringleader for the folk gang, and he brought in girls to the gang, and then the gang took over whenever I got involved. He backed out of the picture, and their job was to traffic me through the college, traffic me. There was some police, like campus police, who were involved, and there were some coaches and the football team and things like that that were involved as well. I was actually high, and I went to a warehouse where I was auctioned off on stage with other women, and then sent to a hotel where I was introduced to a commercial sex ad site. At the time it was called Backpage, and there I was introduced into the world of how to advertise myself for sex trade, and how to learn how to post ads and things like that. And then there were also times where while I was in the room, I was with the trafficker, I would be punished with things like choking and beatings and graphic stories of how he would kill me if I didn't do things, or how he would take my rights away as a mom, or how he would, you know, just basically how he could kill me without ever being caught. And so it made me very scared. And then a guy pulled into the parking lot when I was walking over to a call, and he stopped me and finessed me and pointed out that my situation didn't look good, and that he obviously knew what I was doing. And then he was like, I will help you get off drugs. Do you have kids? And I said, yeah. And he was like, I'll help you get your kids. He built this safety net for me that I hadn't felt, and if ever, but definitely not anytime in the recent events. And so I just jumped in his car. It was just a complete stranger, and I just jumped in his car and thought, well, either this will pan out and be true, and then that will be good for me, or he'll kill me, and then it wouldn't really matter, because at this point I didn't care if life or death took place.
There's all different forms of kidnapping. When you talk about human trafficking, you're talking about mental kidnapping. What is the force, fraud, and coercion? What angle is that trafficker using to make that person do that? It's not going to be the children where the parents are going to call and file an Amber Alert. It's going to be the children that's already, 80% of human trafficking victims have been sexually exploited as children. It's going to be the children that don't fit in. It's going to be the children that's parents aren't going to be looking for them, because a trafficker's not going to want to raise suspicion.
The majority of survivors that we see here at the Wall House were also victims of childhood sexual abuse, and they weren't rescued. They weren't protected from that. So they grow up with a certain amount of vulnerabilities, and a human trafficking trafficker, pimp, whatever term we want to put on them, they're very savvy when it comes to identifying those vulnerabilities in young women especially, and they're able to lure them easier than they would be a child who was not abused and who has a healthy self-esteem. And so that's how they're lured, and they do it very deceitfully. They pretend it's not kidnapping, it's not forcibly taking them from somewhere. Typically, instead, it's luring them in with the promise of love and affection, and a shelter, a roof over their head, and clothes and food. And so they're easily lured when they've already been victimized at an early age.
About 4 o'clock one morning, I got a call from Tuscaloosa Police Department about a young lady that they'd encountered in a hotel there. She was not from the United States, but she did travel here maybe about a year prior to start a modeling career. So she traveled into New York, and that's where she met her first trafficker. He trafficked her all the way down to Florida, and he traded her off to another trafficker, in which in turn she ended up in Tuscaloosa. So she was summoned to make about $1,200 a night. So if she didn't make $1,200 a night, she didn't eat. So when they encountered her, she actually hadn't eaten in about 2 days. So the first thing that I told them was, give her something to eat, and maybe you would, could gain some trust from her. And so they did that, and about 4 or 5 hours later, we were able to convince her to come to the Well House.
I couldn't eat, sleep, or breathe almost. If he could charge me for the breath that I was taking, he would have. It was like I could not do any of the things that I would have basically, what anyone else would normally do without making a certain amount of money. And he would make sure that I didn't. He would come by the hotel and make sure that I didn't take a shower, or I didn't do these things until I made this amount of money. That was when I knew it was over for me, and that was when when he got really graphic about how he would kill me, and then he would choke me and beat me to the point where I would think that he was about to kill me. And I got to the place where I was just so numb inside, like I was not even reacting anymore to him. Every time he would put his hands around my neck, I just stopped responding, and it was just like, just go ahead and kill me.
You take a sexual assault victim, a victim of a rape. Now that's a heinous crime in itself. It's nothing that you want to wish on your worst enemy. But if you magnify that one sexual assault, that one rape victim, if you multiply that with a trafficking victim, those multiple victimizations each day, those 10 or 12 men or individuals that they see each day because they're in this life and they're raped forcibly 10 or 12 times a day, you magnify one sexual assault so many times, so over a period of years, it can be years for some of them, that the level of trauma that they're at, a lot of them have bonded to the trafficker, the Stockholm Syndrome, traumatic bonding, a lot of them are bonded to the trafficker, a lot of them have been in it so long that they associate this with love. And it is very hard to break that crust as a law enforcement officer because they're trained by the trafficker not to believe anything that we say and that we're out to get them and that we're out to arrest them, and actually we're out to rescue them actually. But they've been so brainwashed and so traumatized through years of victimizations that it's really hard to get the victims to stay with you until it's time to take this to court. It's really rough.